for us. Let's move on with a look through the international papers. And what do you know? Hi there, Flo. The Pope
Kat. We're
is
talking
our
about
top
the Pope.
story in the international papers as well.
Absolutely. We're going to start with the Pope, not about his car, but about a meeting he had yesterday with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. They spoke for 50 minutes during a private audience. Essentially what they talked about, you can read about in several papers. The Independent here, you can see, says that Pope Francis urged Putin to deliver peace in Ukraine. It was a pretty standard meeting, but papers are focusing on a couple of details, which seems to suggest that often in diplomacy, it's not so much what was said, but gestures that matter. For instance, take a look at this article in Slate. Vladimir Putin kept the Pope waiting for an hour again.
That's so rude.
It's pretty rude. Well, that's exactly what Slate says. It's rude and inconsiderate. Back in November 2013, the Russian president had already kept the Pope waiting 50 minutes. And reportedly, Vladimir Putin likes to keep people waiting. It's a reputation of his to always be just a little bit late.
Turn up an hour late at my house and you don't get let in.
It's not fashionably late.
Even if you're Vladimir Putin or the Pope. Well, looking at another sort of procedural point about this meeting, of course, the Pope's native language is Spanish. Vladimir Putin's a Russian. They spoke to each other in German.
Well, they greeted each other in German. The Pope greeted Vladimir Putin in German. That's according to the local press, because this was a closed-door meeting. You can see more details here in the Daily Beast. So he greeted Putin with the word Willkommen, and then made the rest of his public comments in German. Now, this has prompted speculation that perhaps the Pope is standing with Germany and the U.S. and standing up to Russia. You can see the Daily Beast's take on this. Did the Pope just diss Putin? It might have also been just a choice of a shared language, because the Pope happens to speak German, and so does Vladimir Putin. Supposedly he's fluent in German from his days at the KGB in East Germany.
Of course, that's how come he and Angela Merkel have such intimate chats on the phone. OK, let's move on to another story. We're looking at Malaysia. Now, 4 Western tourists are currently facing months behind bars there because of some photos that they took on a mountainside. Controversial photos, though, we must say.
Controversial photos, indeed. You can read more about it in the British press, because one of these 4 Westerners is a British woman, 24-year-old Eleanor Hawkins. You can see here the headline in The Independent gives more clues. Malaysia claims a naked British woman caused an earthquake. So it was her, 2 Canadians, and a Dutchman appeared in court yesterday. They've been accused of upsetting the gods and causing a lethal earthquake by posing naked on top of Mount Kinabalu. That's a sacred mountain on the island of Borneo. Now, the incident took place on May 30th, and a few days later, the area was hit by an earthquake. 18 people died in that incident, and these 4 individuals could be charged with obscenity offenses, which carry a maximum penalty of 3 months in prison.
It's not just a huge story in the British and European press, though, also in Malaysia.
That's right. It's the front page of The Star, which is a Malaysian paper. Now, according to the police, 2 of the 4 have confessed that, yes, indeed, they did. We went nude on that mountain. Now, authorities are also looking for 6 other hikers who were allegedly with these 4 individuals. What's interesting is this whole story came up because images appeared on social media, and it really caused outrage in Malaysia, which, remember, is a strictly conservative Muslim country, and supposedly there were death threats on Facebook, for instance.
It just really highlights the enormous cultural divide there, doesn't it? Let's move on to a word about science, much more factual matters. A Nobel Laureate has actually resigned after some controversial comments he made about the role of women.
That's right. This is UCL professor Tim Hunt. He resigned yesterday after sparking quite a media storm over comments he made at the World Conference of Science Journalists in Seoul, South Korea on Tuesday. So what did he say exactly? This is a direct quote. "Let me tell you about my trouble with girls. 3 things happen when they're in the lab. You fall in love with them, they fall in love with you, and when you criticize them, they cry." He went on to call for gender-segregated labs, and as you can imagine, people found this quite controversial.
However, I have to say, if you read these things, it's easy to take them out of context. Is there a chance it was a joke?
Well, he said that he meant this to be humorous, and he apologized, but the damage has already been done. You can see articles like this appearing all over the press. With rablats like him, is there any wonder there's a shortage of women in science? But he's not the first Nobel laureate to say something controversial. Slate has pulled together a best of list, or perhaps a worst of list, the most boneheaded, racist, and sexist comments from Nobel laureates. I'll let you read the article. They're pretty controversial things about, well, racism, bad things about women. And as you can see here, I like this headline, Nobel laureates say the dumbest things sometimes.
Unfortunately. Well, let's stick with science, less controversially, though. A word about Sleep, one of my favorite things.
This is going to be very interesting for all of us here on The Breakfast Show. According to a new study, you can read about it here in The Atlantic, believing that you've slept well, even if you haven't, improves your performance. And the other way works as well. If you're constantly talking about how tired you are, it'll be detrimental to your performance. They call it placebo sleep, and supposedly has very positive effects. And I must admit, I took one for the team, and I tried it out this morning, and it doesn't work at all. At least today it didn't work. I'll try it out again tomorrow and let you know.
Well, you both seem very perky to me. Thanks very much, Flo, with that look through the papers. And Kate.